Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto became Forbidden Demon King and he built a legendary harem with Sakura, Tsunade, Hinata. P2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And comment for next part. And now let's start the fanfic. This is our only chance. Sasuke said firmly. Sakura lowered her head. At this moment, Naruto patted Sakura on the shoulder and said comfortingly, Sakura, we will buy you some time. You can use the opportunity to use genjutsu on Kakashi-sensei. We'll leave our backs to you, so you have to believe in yourself. After a moment's hesitation, Sakura gritted her teeth and nodded. The world of shinobi is cruel. If you could do it, you could, and if you couldn't, you couldn't. Naruto found that neither Sasuke nor Sakura had the same exaggerated personality as portrayed in the manga. They are just normal people. Sakura wasn't that obsessed, and Sasuke wasn't that aloof. They are top talents of their generation, and overall, their character was decent. Perhaps it is also related to the powerful strength displayed by Naruto. In short, for the time being, the three had formed a positive pressure between them. Coupled with Naruto's previous information sharing and the tacit cooperation just now, even though Team 7 hadn't officially formed yet, they already had a good rapport. No grudges, no arrogance, only the belief in mutual cooperation. Under the scorching sun, on the grassy field, Kakashi leaned leisurely against a wooden post, his eyes scanning Ika paradise. It seemed he was completely unguarded against everything around him. A wind rustled through the forest, and Kakashi stopped flipping through the book. Two sharp sounds of wind from the jungle broke the silence of the grassland. Shuriken flew at Kakashi from the sun's reflection, flashing rapidly twice, aimed directly at Kakashi, who was next to the wooden post. Thud, thud, the shuriken missed, embedding themselves deeply into the wooden post. Kakashi had already jumped away, and before his feet touched the ground, Sasuke suddenly charged out from his flank. Wasn't the one who threw the shuriken Sasuke? Kakashi wondered silently in his heart. It can't be helped that Kakashi thought so. After all, in the information given by Sandaime, Sasuke's shuriken jutsu was the best among these three, which made Kakashi subconsciously think that those shurikens just now were thrown by Sasuke. The throwing force is immense, so it can't be Sakura, which means, it must be Naruto. Kakashi muttered, he's unexpectedly good. While Kakashi was still in the air, Sasuke quickly formed hand seals the moment he rushed out. Kakashi also noticed Sasuke's surprise attack and stared at Sasuke's hands. Snake seal, fire release, snake, ram, monkey, boar, horse, tiger, 6 hand seals formed rapidly, and the great fireball technique was activated. The raging flames immediately spread toward Kakashi, forcing him to dodge again. But as he moved, Kakashi suddenly realized something was off. Though he had evaded, his movements seemed much slower. Genjutsu. He didn't dispel it right away, but looked in one direction and saw Sakura struggling to maintain the genjutsu hand seal. Suddenly, Kakashi seemed to understand something. But before he could lower his head, 2 bell chimes rang in his ear. There was a bang and white smoke filled the air. A gust of wind blew past as his vision blurred. And the next moment, Kakashi felt a sense of emptiness around his waist. When the smoke cleared, the bells were already in Naruto's hand. The other 2 members of the team breathed a sigh of relief when they saw Naruto succeeded and slowly approached. Seeing this, Kakashi also stopped. Even though he had held back a lot during this test, the fact remained that the bells were in their hands. Congratulations, you have successfully snatched the bells. Kakashi said with a narrow-eyed smile. By the way, you are the best coordinated team of graduating genin I have ever seen. Hearing this, all 3 of them smiled. Sakura was even more relieved, and her worried expression looked somewhat better. But at the next second, Kakashi's tone changed sharply, becoming instantly serious. You only have 2 bells, so only 2 of you can pass, or maybe just 1. As soon as the words fell, Sasuke and Sakura's gazes instantly focused on Naruto, who was holding two bells. You can give one of the bells to someone else, or you can choose not to. If you're trained alone, you'll probably learn more from me. I am a Jonin after all. And apart from the time I am on missions, I don't have much time left to teach my students. Teaching two is not as effective as teaching one, and it would also be much easier for me. Kakashi's words immediately made Sakura and Sasuke, who had no bells in their hands, nervous. They anxiously looked at Naruto. Kakashi's words were too tempting. Both Sasuke and Sakura knew that Naruto was the strongest among them. If Naruto chose to keep both bells for himself, they couldn't really argue. Even though they would have complaints, Sakura felt utterly hopeless. Her heart seemed to plunge into an icy abyss. There were only two bells, and even if Naruto was willing to give up one, he probably wouldn't give it to me. Who would need a companion who couldn't help at all? How is it? Kakashi asked Naruto with a smile in his eye, arms crossed as he looked at Naruto. Have you decided? There's no need to think about this. Naruto raised the bell in his hand. Hearing this, Sasuke and Sakura's expressions froze. They wondered if it is going to be like this. After all, receiving one-on-one training from a Jonin would indeed allow for faster improvement. The smile in Kakashi's eye grew even brighter, and he uncrossed his arms. Just as he was about to speak, Naruto spoke again. I'm so strong now, so I don't need guidance at all. What? Sasuke was slightly stunned. Sakura held her breath and looked at Naruto with disbelief. As he spoke, Naruto tossed the two bells backward. The bells seemed to have eyes, as they fluttered like leaves and landing gently in Sasuke's and Sakura's hands. Jonin's guidance or something. Naruto dug his ears and flashed a brilliant smile in the sunlight. I don't need it at all. You little brat. Kakashi didn't get angry at Naruto's words. Instead, he smiled. Then, you have to go back to the academy. Going back is fine, I'm so strong anyway. I'll still be number one in my grade when I go back. Naruto said nonchalantly, resting his head on his arms. No way, he can't go back. Sasuke gritted his teeth, walked up to Kakashi, and took out his bell. I'll give him mine. No way, Sasuke. Neither you nor Naruto can go back. Sakura handed over the bell she had just received. Kakashi-sensei, I'll give mine to Naruto. I can't help much anyway. It's always been Naruto and Sasuke who do everything. Everyone passed. Kakashi suddenly said. Sakura was stunned and the bell in her hand fell to the ground. Ding-ling. Pass. Sasuke was dumbfounded. Yes, everyone passes. Kakashi reiterated. Hokage Tower. That's the situation, Hokage-sama. Kakashi placed 3 files on Sandame's desk. Hiruzen didn't say anything. His eyes were fixed on Naruto's file which was placed at the top, puffing on his pipe with each drag. After a long while, Hiruzen put down his pipe and spoke. Kakashi, what do you think? Hokage-sama, the performance of these 3 today was commendable, but among the genin teams I've seen, they're the best. Kakashi said emotionlessly while standing in front of the Sandame's desk with his hands behind his back. Naruto seems to be able to use a small amount of Kyuubi's chakra. Uchiha Sasuke has mastered the fire release ninjutsu and has a strong chakra control. Sakura has a talent for genjutsu and medical ninjutsu. So I'm requesting additional personnel for Team 7 to speed up their training, so they can become independent sooner. Kakashi, you are too impatient. Sandame gently declined Kakashi's request. One is an Uchiha child, and the other is the village's Jinchuriki. Sasuke and Naruto are both important companions of the village. Rather than letting them become independent sooner, it's more important to cultivate their bond with the village. When Sandame said this, Kakashi understood Sandame's meaning and said no more. Yes, Hokage-sama. Sandame watched Kakashi slowly leave the office, only sighing deeply once the door was closed. He then picked up the 3 files again, and examined them closely. On the other side, Naruto was lying on his bed, shaking a bell in his hand. This was a bell Kakashi gave to Naruto later, just as a memento. The breeze rustled outside the window, the bell in Naruto's hand tinkling in response. In life, one tree alone can't support a forest. In the future, Naruto would have to carry out missions with Sasuke and Sakura, and bonds would inevitably form. He also hoped that Sasuke and Sakura would become stronger, making missions easier. But regarding this village, Naruto didn't have much feeling for it. Being a shinobi was just a job, and working hard was just for food. With a click, Naruto gripped the bell and casually placed it on the headboard of his bed. But there is no point in thinking so much, I'll just take it one step at a time. At least I should earn money for food first, and deal with other things as they came. With that thought, Naruto closed his eyes. Time passed quickly, and the three continued their daily training of tree climbing and water walking. Since Naruto's chakra disorder problem had been solved, everything proceeded smoothly. The three of them trained tirelessly from dawn till dusk, long past the point of considering the time. Occasionally, they would do some D-rank missions, which was also a mandatory requirement in Konoha. Before Genin team can accept C-rank missions or higher, they must complete a certain number of D-rank missions, which is somewhat like gaining experience. D-rank missions are simple, but the rewards are meager, and the money they can actually get is not much. And the days of relentless training have caused Naruto's appetite to increase significantly. Naruto had never thought of relying on the system for mastering the climbing trees and treading water. After all, it was still necessary to work hard on some basic things. With the help of the system, he has obtained some of the Kyuubi's power, lava release, and the full-level fishing mastery. Although he gave up the multiple shadow clones technique, he was not in a hurry. He can just ask the village for that ninjutsu when he becomes stronger. At worst, he felt that learning a shadow clone will be enough. Hinata seemed to be training as well, as he hadn't seen her for a long time. Even if he wanted to make some progress on the mission, he had no way to do so. July. Naruto, who was sleeping soundly, vaguely heard a knocking sound. He groggily opened his eyes, and the knocking sound became clearer. Someone was really knocking on the door. Who would come at this time? Knock, knock, knock. The urgent knocking was accompanied by a female voice. Hey, Naruto, open the door. I knew you would forget. We agreed on this. You promised. Naruto, who was still half asleep, went to open the door. When he saw the person in front of the door, he couldn't help but feel a little confused. Sakura, what are you doing here? Ah, Sakura was about to explode. You promised me a few days ago. I already reminded you yesterday, and you forgot again. Yesterday. Naruto really couldn't remember anything. After thinking carefully, he finally recalled it and asked tentatively, Sasuke's birthday. Yeah. Sakura turned her head away, looking a bit embarrassed. Good thing you remembered young Master Sasuke's birthday. Naruto yawned. It's all in the file. Sakura said as she stood at the door to the corridor. Sasuke-kun's birthday is July 23rd, Leo. You're October 10th, Libra. Naruto was a little surprised that Sakura actually remembered his birthday, and he didn't know what to say for a moment. See, it's easy to remember, right? Sakura asked. So, Sakura, when's your birthday? Naruto asked. March 28th, Aries, it's already passed. Sakura replied, but boys probably don't care about these things. Well, if I knew, I wouldn't have agreed to you. Naruto said casually, the training is so hard, and today is a rare day off. Alright, let's go. Come with me to pick a gift for Sasuke-kun. I don't know what to choose on my own. Sakura urged, as a reward, I'll treat you to barbecue. Okay. When Naruto heard that there was food, he mustered his energy and went back to his room to change clothes. The training for Team 7 had come to a temporary end, and their performance was still quite good. Kakashi had submitted a request to the village higher-ups for C-rank missions, but the review would take 2 days. For this reason, Team 7, for the first time in a month and a half, got a 2-day break. Unless something unexpected happened, after the break, they would have to take on missions again. At this time, the drunken Tsunade, the bridge building expert from the land of waves, has arrived at Konoha village. The clouds hung low and dark, and after Naruto finished his morning routine and stepped out the door, the sky instantly darkened. It was as if someone had turned off a light above the clouds, plunging everything into darkness. Then, with a thunderous roar, the rain started pouring down without warning. Naruto and Sakura stood in the corridor at the entrance, looking at the heavy curtain of rain with speechless expression. Did the weather forecast in Konoha say it would rain today? Sakura stood by the wall, frowning at the almost instant blur of the white mist. Today's weather was gloomy in the morning, wasn't it? Naruto muttered, the good news is, I have an umbrella. About an hour later, the rain had lightened up a bit. Let's go, Sakura said, getting up. Okay. Naruto responded and locked the door before going out. With a snap, a black umbrella was opened. The two of them huddled under the black umbrella. Fortunately, the umbrella was large enough, so they didn't have to worry about getting wet. Naruto. Sakura broke the silence, seeming to be in a low mood. Why did those people look at us like that just now? Sakura asked with concern, aren't they also residents of the apartment? When they walked out of the apartment, Sakura saw for the first time the villagers, standing under the eaves, had dark and full of disdain expressions, as if they were looking at something extremely repulsive. Because you are walking beside me, they hate you too. Naruto said. Is that really okay? Sakura couldn't help but shudder. Naruto, you've always been looked at that way. She did not continue the conversation and stopped talking. It doesn't matter. Naruto seemed not to care. He held the umbrella in his hand and looked steadily ahead. The street under their feet was flowing with rainwater. Summer always brought abundant rain, and the black umbrella stood out starkly against the cold street. His voice was firm and cool, as plain as freshly cooled boiled water. I've long since stopped caring about them. Those saying that might be a bit harsh. But they are just brainless pests following the crowd. Or maybe, their hatred of me helps them unite. No one wants to be left out, right? The rain hit the black umbrella, making a rustling sound. Forgive me for saying this, but they are just existing, aren't they? Covered in human skin, the only meaningful thing they can do is to work and reproduce. Listening to Naruto's words, Sakura didn't know what to say. After passing through the old streets, the two stopped in front of a gift shop. Then, Naruto motioned Sakura to go in first. Sakura was a little confused and looked at Naruto in confusion. If you come in with me, the shop owner might not sell to you. Sakura was stunned for a moment after hearing this. She looked up at Naruto, then at the rain outside, and after hesitating for a moment, she turned around and went in first. After a while, Naruto estimated that Sakura probably had made her choice, so he walked into the store. The shop owner recognized Naruto, frowned as he gave him a glance, but said nothing. At that moment, Sakura was walking out, holding a gift, which is a cute blue plush doll. Naruto nodded, turned around and walked out the door. You're leaving without buying anything. The shop owner suddenly mocked from the doorway, next time, don't come to my shop if you have no money. Naruto ignored it and continued walking forward. Instead, Sakura felt as if her palm was pricked by a needle. Her brow furrowed deeply, and her fingers clenched tightly around the plush toy. Shinobi was forbidden from harming the civilians in their village, this is clearly stated in the Shinobi Code. The shop owner obviously knew this too, this is why he showed no restraint as he watched Naruto leave the store. Although she had mentally prepared herself, witnessing such blatant bullying right before her eyes, with the victim being her own comrade, was still hard to bear. Filled with resentment, Sakura threw the plush toy heavily into the shop owner's arms, startling him. What are you doing? I'm not buying anything from this crappy store. Sakura glared at the shop owner before storming out. Are you sick? Really? Sakura exited the gift shop and saw Naruto waiting for her under the eaves, shielding himself from the rain. She pursed her lips and said, "The stuff in there was no good, so I didn't buy anything." Alright. Naruto didn't say much, opened the big black umbrella and stepped out into the rain. I plan to go to the ninja tools shop and buy a wrist guard for Sasuke. What do you think? Sakura forced a smile and said, I don't really know what boys like, so I wanted you to give me some advice. I didn't expect what happened back there, and I didn't think it through, I'm sorry. By the end of her sentence, Sakura's voice grew softer and softer. There's no need to apologize. I heard everything earlier. You could have bought it if you wanted. Naruto said nonchalantly, I don't care about what those bugs say. Bugs? Sakura blinked and didn't react for a moment. Well, I see those people as bugs. Naruto explained, in fact, aside from excluding me, they can't really do anything to me. They have no power and live their lives in confusion. Even though I became a shinobi, they still speak rudely to me as always. To me, they are just the bugs of Konoha. Whether they live or die doesn't matter to me. Sakura became increasingly nervous as she listened, so she quickly tried to change the subject. But just as she was about to speak, a flash of golden light caught her eye. Why are you walking together? Ino raised her umbrella and stood in the rain, looking at the two with curiosity. Sakura was afraid that Ino would know that she was shopping for Sasuke's birthday present, and she was also worried that Naruto might spill the beans, so she quickly explained. I had something to ask Naruto for help with. Ino stared at Sakura suspiciously. Since when did you two get so close that you'd ask each other for helps? It's about training. Right, Naruto. Sakura said nervously, her awkwardness making it obvious she was lying. Yes. Naruto nodded. Training. Ino retracted her gaze, the gossipy and suspicious look on her face slowly fading. She did know that the two of them were in the same team as Sasuke, and that Naruto's top score in the graduation exam was indeed surprising. If Sakura were asking for advice on training, that would indeed make sense. But there is another thing that Ino cares about. Ever since Naruto said in front of her that day that Sasuke doesn't like women, this has become her personal torment. I see you two have walked together for quite a while. Is your training over? Ino asked. Yes, it's over. Sakura said helplessly. She really couldn't tell another lie. Okay then. Ino then handed her umbrella to Sakura and dragged Naruto away. What? Sakura was stunned. I'm borrowing him for a bit. Ino's voice came from afar as they disappeared from sight. In a narrow alley, Ino cornered Naruto against the wall. Her thick golden bangs covered half of her face, and her blue eyes stared intensely at Naruto as she uttered, Hey! Does Sasuke like women? What? Naruto tilted his head and looked at Ino in confusion, completely unaware that he was being interrogated. Damn it! You said that yourself. Ino was getting frustrated. She grabbed Naruto by the shirt and said, Don't play dumb, Naruto. Well, you should ask Sasuke directly. Naruto suddenly smirked mischievously. Damn it. Ino was on the verge of losing it, clutching her head and shaking it from side to side. Does he like women or not? I have a way to verify it. Naruto chimed in at the right moment. What way? Ino looked up suddenly. Every year, Konoha's shinobi have a chance to take a collective hot spring vacation. Naruto said with a smile, when the time comes, you can go directly to the men's side while Sasuke is alone. Go to hell. Ino, not getting the answer she wanted, took a deep breath and decided to give up. The Yamanaka flower shop wasn't far away. Naruto escorted Ino there before returning to his apartment. In fact, he actually had a pretty good relationship with the Ino Shika Cho trio. The next day, Naruto's 2-day break ended. Kakashi gathered Team 7 and informed them that their mission had been approved. Moreover, he had taken the liberty of assigning them their first C-rank mission. Protecting a bridge building expert from the land of waves. Sakura asked. Yes. Kakashi, with his usual laid-back demeanor and hands in his pockets, said, "Stay alert. This is your first ever C-rank mission. Even though C-rank missions generally don't involve encountering enemies, anything can happen outside the village. Bandits, rogue shinobi, pirates, shinobi from other shinobi villages. Any of these factors could escalate the mission into a combat situation." "I know, Kakashi-sensei. You're so nagging." Naruto, who was in a much better mood than during the rainy day yesterday, couldn't help but complain. When he left his apartment that morning, he had tossed a bag of garbage in the faces of those people with gloomy looks downstairs, which had lifted his spirits significantly. Those villagers were just like keyboard warriors. When they saw Naruto take out the shinobi forehead protector, they immediately shrank back and dared not to speak. Kakashi didn't say a word, just gave Naruto a knock on the head. Team 7. Gather at the village gate in half an hour. Dismissed. After saying that, Kakashi vanished in a puff of smoke. "I'm really looking forward to this mission," Sakura said with a hint of longing. "I wonder what kind of person that bridge building expert is like." "Whatever. We're just there to protect the client," Sasuke said indifferently. "It doesn't matter who he is. Kakashi already said there wouldn't be any combat in a C-rank mission. It's boring. Let's just get it over with and not waste time." Naruto glanced at Sasuke and noticed he was wearing a blue wrist guard on his left wrist. "Naruto, what kind of person do you think the bridge building expert is?" Sakura turned to look at Naruto, who was yawning at the moment. "No idea, but since he's an expert, he must be an old man with a bad temper." Naruto scratched his face and said indifferently. Half an hour later, at the gate of Konoha village. "Hey, are you kidding me? I paid for protection. Now you sent 3 little brats to protect me. What's wrong with you Konoha people?" A scruffy, bearded old man clutching a bottle of alcohol was yelling at Kakashi. "Is this how Konoha treats its clients? How can you protect me like this? I'm a bridge building expert." Sakura's face was full of dark lines as she stared at the tall, scruffy old man, then she turned around and glanced at Naruto, her expression saying that, "You guessed it right." Kakashi was explaining with a smile, but the old man was not convinced at all and spoke with great agitation. "I am Tsunade, the bridge building expert from the land of waves." Naruto, who was on the side, was growing increasingly impatient, and shouted at the man. "Shut up, old man. What's so impressive about building bridges? You little brat." Tsunade's expression turned agitated, but he quickly calmed down with Kakashi's intervention. After some coaxing, he finally agreed to set off. Half a day later, the group reached the border of the Land of Fire's forest. If they walked a little further, they would reach the dock. However, Kakashi's eye became sharper for a moment. Sasuke seemed to notice Kakashi's reaction and his brow slightly furrowed. Although he still looked calm, he had already become vigilant. Naruto had long known that someone was waiting to ambush them. After all, the hiding skills of the Karigakure's shinobi were too clumsy. But he was not worried and continued to walk forward while humming a tune. As they walked, even Sakura in the team felt a little nervous. She couldn't help feeling uneasy when listening to Naruto's ambiguous humming. Just as she was about to speak, an unexpected turn of events occurred. 2 shinobi suddenly jumped out from the puddle on the road, wielding spiked chains, and charged straight at Kakashi. In that instant, the muggy wind stopped, and Naruto could feel the sweat sticking to his skin momentarily freeze. This mysterious feeling was fleeting. The black and white scene was suddenly filled with color, becoming vivid. A mechanical synthesis sound rang in his head again. At that moment, the frozen scene instantly came to life. Kakashi was attacked and blood was splattered everywhere. Naruto knew that this was Kakashi's body replacement technique, and ignored Sakura's screams. The 2 Karigakure's shinobi thought they had dealt with Kakashi, so they charged towards the seemingly defenseless Naruto. "Naruto, dodge!" Sakura shouted in horror. But Naruto remained unmoved, as if he was frozen in place. Not far away, Sasuke clicked his tongue and threw 3 shuriken. The three shuriken temporarily repelled the two Kurigakure's shinobi. At this moment, Naruto finally moved. However, he didn't retreat, and instead charged towards them. Naruto. It's dangerous. Sasuke was also stunned. After regaining his senses, without any hesitation, he grabbed his kunai and rushed towards them. Sakura, protect Mr. Tsunade. Sakura only heard Sasuke's words before seeing Naruto, and Sasuke rushed towards the two enemy shinobi. Her heart pounded rapidly, a mix of panic and a hint of inferiority. They were all executing their first mission, but those two didn't seem as scared or apprehensive about confronting shinobi as she was. Just as she was distracted, Naruto's voice rang out ahead. Damn it! Are you messing with me? Options. Show yourself. Bang bang bang. The two Kurigakure's shinobi fell to the ground with bruised eyes and noses, while Naruto was still muttering strange words while continuing to beat them. Sasuke stopped halfway, with a look of shock on his face. While Kakashi, who should have been dead, was standing nearby perfectly fine, shaking his head as he looked at Naruto. Alright, Naruto, that's enough. Kakashi glanced at Naruto, who was still punching and kicking the two Kurigakure's shinobi while muttering to himself. I need to ask them some questions. Hearing this, Naruto reluctantly stopped. He was sure that the momentary pause and desaturation of the scene were caused by the system, but strangely, no system options had popped up. That fleeting ripple, appearing and disappearing instantly, felt like the system had experienced some dreadful glitch. Naruto wasn't sure what had happened to make the system appear and then retract so quickly. Was it broken? Naruto felt a bit uneasy. The last time, during the bell-grabbing test, he had chosen to give his all rather than doing nothing and take it easy. That option didn't make much sense anyway. Doing nothing, that would harm both himself and others. Even though he would gain wood release, it could have meant the end of Team 7. At the same time, Naruto also realized one thing. The options given by the system weren't balanced, they seemed more random. The system had no emotions and just triggered options randomly. Whether it was a proactive choice or a passive one, neither was a perfect option. Once a choice is made, he will inevitably have to pay the opportunity cost. For instance, with Mizuki's invitation, Naruto had refused and gained full-level fishing mastery. However, at the same time, Naruto lost the opportunity to obtain the multiple shadow clone technique. However, Naruto did not regret it afterwards. Only people can use multiple shadow clone technique, so he will get it sooner or later. If he had agreed to Mizuki's plan, he would have to step into the touching drama set up by Sandaime and the other higher-ups, and force himself to suppress his nausea while expressing his loyalty to the village. After summarizing everything in his mind, Naruto also realized something. The system was just an aid, and any choice was meant to improve his situation. It is precisely because of the existence of the system that Naruto can obtain ninjutsu without relying on anyone, and he doesn't even need to establish any bond with Kyuubi to directly draw its power. This is the true purpose of the system, to save Naruto from many troubles. He could refuse things he didn't want to do and obtain everything he desired. Naruto thought silently, this is probably the true purpose of the take it easy system. Are you okay? Sakura asked worriedly. I'm fine. Naruto waved his hands to indicate that he was really fine. Hearing this, Sakura felt a bit reassured but soon remembered something and hesitantly asked. Naruto, why did you just stand still earlier? It was my first real battle, so I panicked a bit. Really? Sakura showed a relieved expression and said comfortingly, I was also shocked just now, my whole body went stiff. Rather than comforting Naruto, Sakura was comforting herself. When Kakashi was sliced into pieces by the two Kurigakure's shinobi, Sakura's face turned as white as paper. Naruto nodded and said nothing more. Meanwhile, Kakashi's interrogation was progressing. The two Kurigakure's shinobi were known as the Demon Brothers and were after Tsunade. But when Tsunade was asked about this, he remained silent. The mission had been accepted, so even though something felt off, abandoning the client was not an option. After some thought, Kakashi decided to push forward and complete the mission with Team 7. It was not until Team 7 reached the other side of the Land of Waves, aboard a boat heading towards the small island, that Tsunade revealed the truth. The person who wants me dead is a wealthy tycoon from a shipping company. I'm sure you've heard his name. Tsunade said with a helpless expression on his face. As Tsunade continued to explain, the whole situation became clearer. Gato is the owner of a shipping company and a significant figure who operated both legally and illegally. He ran a company on the surface, but secretly hired shinobi to carry out unlawful activities. It was this Gato who had set his sights on the island country of the Land of Waves, which is surrounded by sea on all sides. He wanted to control the waterways to expand his influence on the island and eventually gain complete control over it. The island's only bridge was under construction, and the old man in front of them was the only one who knew how to build it. If Gato kills him, the bridge will naturally not be built. Naruto leaned back against the boat, letting his hand touch the flowing seawater as he pondered how to make a profit from Gato. The Land of Waves was a poor, dirt-eating island nation, but Gato was a bona fide tycoon. Since Gato was going to die eventually, Naruto thought he might as well seize the opportunity to make some money. After all, the purpose of being a shinobi is to earn money to live. Continuously doing missions didn't bring much money, and he couldn't work forever. Shinobis also have a prime age for their work. Shinobi from large clans generally only trained and did missions during their youth. After that, they lived a more stable life, with regular hours and leisurely activities. Since Naruto has decided not to work towards becoming Hokage, his future life depended solely on himself, and there are plenty of things he needed money for. Dating, buying a house, traveling. Come to think of it, Jiraiya's lifestyle wasn't bad either, traveling everywhere and visiting different hot springs with different women. Even in his 50s or 60s, he was still living well. While Naruto was lost in these thoughts, the boat reached the shore. Tsunade's lie gave Kakashi quite a headache. They could choose to abandon the mission. However, one of the purposes of taking a C-rank mission was to train Team 7, so Kakashi decided on the next plan. As long as they safely escorted Tsunade home, the mission would be considered complete. What should we do after this mission? Kakashi mused leisurely as they walked. How about giving Team 7 another 2 days off? That sounds good. Naruto was the first to agree. That's great, Sakura said with a smile. Sasuke didn't say anything, but his eyes are scanning their surroundings. As the mission neared its end, he frowned slightly when he heard that the others seemed to have let down their guard and even discussed their plans after the mission. If all shinobi were like this, it would be hard for them to survive for long. Hey, how much longer until we arrive? Naruto turned to Tsunade and asked impatiently, "Old man, say something." Compared to Sasuke, Naruto is not worried about Zabuza suddenly appearing. After all, with Kakashi around, there should be no real problem. Even if Uchiha Madara came, Kakashi could still beat him. Kakashi was so powerful that he could fight anyone on equal terms. With such strong backup, Zabuza's ambush would only become a joke. Besides Kakashi, there were also Sasuke and Naruto who could fight. With 3 against 1, the advantage was on Team 7. That's why Naruto didn't pay attention to Zabuza. He was always thinking about Gato, the financial backer behind Zabuza. System, please come out. Naruto thought silently in his heart, I can't pull off this Robin Hood act without you. System, Daddy System, ding. The familiar mechanical voice sounded, and Naruto took a deep breath. At this moment, the sound was like music to his ears. The panel popped up, presenting the classic 2-choice scenario. Option 1. Kill Momochi Zabuza. Reward. Ice release incomplete. Option 2. Kill Haku. Reward. All assets related to Gato, real estate and company assets will be converted into cash at the same value and stored in the new system warehouse function. Seeing this, Naruto swallowed his saliva almost immediately. He didn't feel guilty about killing either. After all, whether it was Zabuza or Haku, they were enemies in a life or death battle. But what really annoyed Naruto was, why did I have to choose between the two? Why in this world was there such a cruel thing as choosing between the two? Can't I just kill them both? The system didn't respond at all, and Naruto didn't dare to act rashly. The previous incident made him a little afraid. After all, if he bugged the system and lost it, the loss would outweigh the gain. Without the system, Naruto would have no way of escaping his predetermined fate. Whether he liked it or not, the Akatsuki would come for him and kill him, unless he trained desperately, which would also mean he couldn't escape the cycle of serving Konoha. He would have to form those bonds and get involved in troublesome things like being the child of prophecy. He would be tortured over and over again, blood off the blade. Naruto, why did you suddenly stop? Is there something wrong? Noticing Naruto's sudden halt, Sakura immediately became alert and looked around nervously, fearing that another shinobi would suddenly jump out from some corner. Fortunately, what she feared didn't happen, and her voice also made Kakashi and the others at the front turned around to look at the stopping Naruto. It's okay, just a bit of a stomach ache, Naruto said. Hearing this, Kakashi and the others turned back and continued walking. Naruto caught up with the group, staring at the pop-up panel in front of him with a frown, while there's a constant turmoil in his mind. Zabuza is a water-release shinobi, so I can use Kyuubi's chakra to counterattack. With the addition of lava release, I should be able to fight him. But with Kakashi around, even if I face Zabuza, I won't be under much pressure. Instead, I can take advantage of Zabuza's contempt for Genin and seize the opportunity to launch a surprise attack. Haku's Kekkei Genkei is ice release, which was countered by lava release. No matter what, if I want to kill Zabuza, I can't avoid Haku. As long as Haku is still alive, he will definitely protect Zabuza at all costs. Therefore, it is not that easy to kill Zabuza in one go. Instead of doing that, it is better to just target Haku directly. Killing Zabuza will give Naruto the ice release Kekkei Genkei, which is a rare help for him at this moment. Even with the incomplete ice release, Naruto's strength could leap to the level of a Tokubetsu Jonin. But Gato's entire fortune was equally appealing to Naruto. In this world, even Akatsuki has to take on missions for money. The assumption that being strong meant never lacking money was incorrect in this world. As robbery will also bring risks such as being hunted down by shinobi. The amount of fortune a person can steal at one time is extremely limited, as wealth is mostly in the form of fixed assets and companies. The stolen money and jewels might not even be usable and could bring safety risks. But the system's operation directly extracted Gato's wealth. All the company's fixed assets, like the jewelry, buildings, etc., will be converted into cash and stored in the system warehouse. This means that all the money would be clean. With this money, I will be truly free. Naruto murmured to himself, I also want to become stronger. I will definitely do so next time. Up ahead, Kakashi was talking to Tazuna, and their conversation inevitably reached Naruto's ears. Gato has accumulated a lot of wealth over the years by using shinobi. Now, his fortune rivals nations. He has countless rogue samurai and shinobi under his command, making his force very powerful. Well, I have heard of that. I occasionally hear such information when I am on missions. Kakashi's lazy voice responded. That man is a very scary guy. If you guys hadn't escorted me, I might have already been killed on the way. Since Konoha took the mission, we absolutely won't abandon it halfway. Rest assured, we'll make sure you get home safely. Their conversation became more chaotic, and Naruto decided to stop listening. His eyes gradually became determined, wealth that rivaled nations. Sure enough, it turned out that I had made the right choice. The system had solved his worries, as this wealth would be stored directly in the system's warehouse. This meant that Naruto only needed to complete the system's task, and the wealth would appear in the system warehouse without leaving a trace. Even if someone discovered Gato's wealth had disappeared, they wouldn't associate it with Naruto. Since he no longer intended to be entangled with Sandaime and avoid being brainwashed with the village's interests above all, he had to take control of his finances. He remembered that in the original work, Naruto ran around doing missions for the village, solving problem after problem, yet he remained a genin. Although one reason was the abundance of missions leaving him no time for exams, but according to the rules, since Naruto was still a genin, the share of the mission rewards he got was very low. In the end, no matter how hard he worked as a genin, he couldn't save much money. And after becoming Hokage, his life completely revolved around the village. On the other hand, the members of the Konoha's big clans never lacked money. Even Tsunade, who had a gambling addiction, could never run out of money. Moreover, the dowry given by the Hyuga clan is enough to last Naruto a lifetime. His financial situation before and after marriage couldn't be compared at all. Mooching is indeed more comfortable. But although Naruto didn't mind living off Hinata, as a man, he still wanted to excel in his own right. After thinking about it, Naruto still chose Gato's treasure as his first pot of gold. It won't be long before Team 7 is short of staff. Naruto had to plan ahead and avoid the vicious circle of working hard. People around him are not short of money. He can't live like the prince of Konoha and still have to work for money. Just as he was thinking about it, a huge, spinning Kubikiribocho suddenly blocked their path ahead. Watch out! Sakura immediately tackled Tsunade to the ground. Kubikiribocho flew past them, embedding itself into a tree. At the same time, a figure appeared on top of the blade, staring coldly at them. Momochi Zabuza. Kakashi instantly recognized the bandage-wrapped man standing on the blade. He then quietly reminded the genin of Team 7 behind him, "Be careful, this guy is a missing nin from Kurigakure, and has elite Jonin level strength, comparable to me." Hitaki Kakashi. Zabuza jumped down to the grass, grinning wildly, with the massive Kubikiribocho slung over his shoulder. He then arrogantly said, "I'll take the life of the man in front of you." Almost as soon as he spoke, Zabuza's figure suddenly disappeared, and with a bang, he suddenly appeared in front of Tsunade. "This is my client. I will be in trouble if the mission fails. Why don't you pick a different target?" Kakashi's voice was lazy but firm as he blocked the Kubikiribocho with a kunai. The moment the weapons of the two elite Jonin collided, a heavy killing intent burst forth, almost suffocating everyone present. Even Naruto felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave thousands of feet deep in an instant, and his whole body was frozen stiff, unable to move. After all, this is the first time he felt such intense killing intent. Sasuke and Sakura were not much better off, as they just stood there in a daze. A thick mist began to rise around them. Kakashi and Zabuza, locked in a deadly stare down with their weapons clashing, had no time to pay attention to Naruto and the others. Warm chakra flowed gently through Naruto's body, and within a few seconds, he adjusted himself. He turned around and rushed directly towards Sasuke and Sakura, slapping each of them on the back. Almost at the same time, their eyes, which had been dazed, snapped back to focus. They immediately both gasped for air, as if they had been holding their breath for a long time. "The killing intent of a Jonin is too terrifying," Sasuke said, his face still taut with fear. At the same time, he also realized that Naruto was the first among them to snap out of it, and that his intervention had helped both him and Sakura break free from their frozen state. Sakura sat on the ground, her whole body trembling uncontrollably. Zabuza's killing intent was not a genjutsu, but a tangible presence enhanced by his chakra, causing fear to grip the three genin of Team 7. "Sakura." Naruto pulled Sakura up and said, "Immediately disrupt the flow of chakra in your body, just like when you break a genjutsu." As soon as these words came out, Sasuke and Sakura reacted immediately and formed a hand seal with their hands. This trick really worked, and the two of them immediately shook off the paralysis. On the other side, Kakashi and Zabuza were already engaged in battle. Suddenly, a water clone of Zabuza rose from a nearby puddle like a ghost, then rushed toward Naruto and the others. A water clone of an elite Jonin had at least the strength of a Chunin. Watch out! Kakashi caught a glimpse of Zabuza's water clone while fighting the real body, and hurriedly shouted to warn his students. Logically speaking, Kakashi could have left a shadow clone to protect Team 7. But he obviously didn't want to do that, as shinobi are a profession where the strong prey on the weak. Without Kakashi's reminder, the three of them still saw Zabuza's water clone. Sasuke pulled Tsunade back, while Naruto grabbed Sakura and retreated as well. Sasuke! Naruto shouted. Quick! Shuriken! In response, 3 shuriken flew at Zabuza in a flash, and Naruto followed right behind them, clearly planning to engage Zabuza's water clone head-on. Sakura! Genjutsu! Naruto commanded as he charged. Although this was their first team battle and they hadn't discussed a plan, Naruto was now taking the lead, even though it was clear to Zabuza's clone. Tsunade, who had been boasting about being a bridge-building expert earlier, now stood trembling like a psyduck, while Sasuke stood protectively in front of him. As Sakura heard Naruto's voice, she, though flustered, reacted promptly. The genjutsu she used had no effect on Zabuza's water clone, but it was enough to momentarily distract him. And this moment is enough. The mechanical synthesized voice sounded in Naruto's mind. QB's approval 2.2%. Orange chakra instantly enveloped Naruto's entire body, his pupils turning blood red in an instant, and the overwhelming power surging within him. With a bang, Naruto, who was charging forward, suddenly vanished from his spot. At the next moment, Naruto's body appeared like a phantom behind Zabuza's water clone, then he delivered a heavy sweep kick that shattered the water clone. QB is powerful enough to render even the Yondaime Hokage and a group of elite Jonin helpless. Even though Naruto can only use 2.2% of QB's power, he was already approaching the level of a Tokubetsu Jonin. Without considering the recent acquisition of his lava release, Naruto's reliance on just this little bit of QB's power was enough to let him look down upon all the Chunin in Konoha. How could that kid be so strong? Tsunade, the psyduck, who was standing in place, watched Naruto decisively deal with the water clone and couldn't help but exclaim. These words were naturally heard by Sasuke, who was holding a kunai in front of him on guard, and his face darkened slightly. If Naruto was lucky the first time he defeated the 2 Kurigakure's shinobi who were ambushing them, then his second time breaking the paralysis and taking down an elite Jonin's water clone was proof enough that Naruto's strength was indeed the most outstanding in Team 7. While Sasuke is only slightly better than Sakura. If Naruto had been born into a noble clan, enjoyed the best resources, and trained rigorously every day, Sasuke would not care so much. But he knew well that since he met Naruto, the guy had always been the last in the class, boastful in his ability is at the bottom. Such a person was not worth him wasting time to look at. He had never thought of forming a bond with such a person, but it seemed that overnight, Naruto had changed. Not only did he graduate with the top score from the academy, but he also knew so much about the village's clans' secrets. Although those secrets weren't huge, for Sasuke, whose clan was wiped out when he was young, and Sakura, who was from a civilian background, these were already considered obscure knowledge. Whether it was sharing information or enhancing strength, Sasuke quietly wondered, could this guy have been pretending all along? He's been at the bottom of the class every year, it's too stable. Pretending to be a useless student. Confused thoughts swirled in Sasuke's mind, while Sakura let out a sigh of relief. She clasped her hands together nervously and thought secretly in her heart, luckily, there's Naruto. If Naruto hadn't called her just now, she might have been frozen like a piece of wood again. At least, she had used a genjutsu, contributing to the team's effort. After losing a water clone, Zabuza no longer had the energy to create another one. After all, at this moment, he was fighting with Kakashi, and both of them are injured. Seeing this, Naruto rushed forward without thinking. At this time, Kakashi had also found a flaw in Zabuza's defense, so he took the initiative to form hand seals, and unleashed a water dragon bullet technique straight at Zabuza's face. Zabuza barely dodged but was still injured. Before he could move again, three Senbon suddenly flew out of nowhere and pierced Zabuza's neck directly. Kakashi immediately became alert, while Naruto relaxed his furrowed brow. As Haku finally going to appear, a masked boy suddenly emerged from the thick mist and directly jumped in front of Zabuza, who was lying on the ground. Naruto's pupils shrank slightly and he secretly mobilized the chakra in his body. Zabuza lay motionless on the ground, and Haku, wearing a mask, stood beside him, watching Kakashi and Team 7 calmly. I am a hunter nin from Kurigakure, tasked with retrieving the missing nin from our village. Haku's voice was cold and his words were concise. The dense, milky fog still hung around the forest, showing no signs of dissipating. Mist from the treetops gathered into drops, falling with a soft plop onto the grass below. Even Kakashi was uncertain about the masked youth who claimed to be a hunter nin. Team 7 was equally tense, muscles taut and ready for action. Kakashi said nothing, merely stepping forward to check Zabuza's breath. After confirming he had stopped breathing, Kakashi relaxed slightly. Since the enemy is dead, it was only right to return the body to Kurigakure. Kakashi-sensei, is he dead? Naruto suddenly appeared behind Kakashi, pointing at the motionless Zabuza with an innocent expression. Haku stood aside without reacting, his eyes scanning Naruto's face from behind the mask. Ah, he's dead. Kakashi, Konoha's top genius, replied perfunctorily, he was hit by my water dragon bullet just now, and then his throat was pierced by this hunter nin's needles, so he died just like that. At this moment, Naruto seriously doubted that Kakashi had seen through Zabuza's fake death and was intentionally letting him go. In fact, it is understandable since the 44 hand seals required for the water dragon bullet technique consumed too much of Kakashi's stamina. It is understandable that Kakashi is unwilling to take the risk of entanglement with the enemies, but still. Come on. As an elite Jonin, how could you not have the awareness of finishing off a target? Naruto planned to teach the naive Kakashi, the best holding back person in Konoha, a lesson, to let him know how powerful the most boastful, no, most ruthless shinobi in Konoha is. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, how come this guy can move if he's dead? Naruto said while pointing at the supposedly dead Zabuza lying on the ground. What? Kakashi's expression instantly became serious. He's already dead. Haku, who was trying to maintain his cool demeanor, couldn't help but retort, little brother, you must have seen it wrong. This man is a missing nin from Kurigakure. His body contains the village's secrets. Please allow me to take his body back. After saying this, behind the mask, Haku's face couldn't help but show nervousness, but fortunately, the mask covered his face so that he wouldn't be exposed. Zabuza, unable to withstand a prolonged battle against Team 7, had planned this fake death to escape. Haku had arrived as planned, and everything would have gone smoothly, until this blonde kid suddenly interfered. Kakashi looked at Naruto, then at Haku, and finally his gaze rested on the motionless Zabuza. In that case, please allow me to verify whether Zabuza is alive or dead. Sure. Haku replied. Kakashi stretched out his hand and slowly reached towards Zabuza's neck. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Kakashi's hand, with Sakura and Sasuke instinctively holding their breath. Lava release. Naruto, who was standing next to Kakashi, suddenly jumped up, a large amount of chakra surged out of his body, and his eyes instantly turned scarlet. Scorching lava surged from Naruto's hand, and its intense heat evaporated the surrounding mist in an instant. Seeing that Naruto had hurled the lava at Zabuza, who was pretending to be dead on the ground, Haku on the side was shocked and pounced towards Zabuza. Haku's right hand was scorched black by the intense heat of the lava release, but he also managed to save Zabuza and deftly pulled out the Senbon from his neck with his left hand. Zabuza's eyes snapped open and he instantly came back to life. Zabuza-sama, I failed. Haku said to Zabuza apologetically, but his face showed no signs of pain despite his severely burned right hand, as if the hand was not his own but belonged to someone else. After he finished speaking, Haku formed a single hand seal and, together with Zabuza, vanished swiftly like the wind. This secret escape technique was akin to the smoke escape technique. Naruto can understand it, but he can't learn it. Kakashi watched Zabuza and Haku leave the whole time, and 3 seconds later, he collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Kakashi-sensei. Sakura hurried forward to check on him. It must be that his chakra has been used up. Naruto imitated Kakashi's earlier method of checking Zabuza's breath, waving his hand in front of Kakashi's nose and calmly stated. Kakashi on the ground had fallen into a baby-like sleep. Fortunately, his breathing was still steady, indicating he had indeed fainted. This is not a good place to stay, let's take him back first. Sasuke said with one hand in his pocket. He had tried a one-handed hand seal earlier but had failed. His hand, left hanging, moved uneasily before he grabbed one of Kakashi's arms and put it over his shoulder. Naruto followed suit, taking Kakashi's other arm over his shoulder, and they supported him together. The village is just ahead. Let's take him to my house. The protected client, Tsunade, suggested. The 3 genin of Team 7 discussed it for a while and agreed directly. At Tsunade's house, the 3 placed Kakashi in a clean room, laying him on a futon. Sakura tucked the quilt for Kakashi with a worried look on her face. When she walked out the door, Naruto and Sasuke were already standing in the hallway, waiting for her. When Sakura saw Naruto's gaze, she nodded in understanding, didn't say anything, and followed the 2 boys directly. They walked a short distance outside the house, where the view was open enough to spot enemies and their conversation wouldn't be overheard. How's Kakashi? Sasuke asked with serious expression. Sakura, with a tired look on her face, shook her head worriedly. He just fainted from exhaustion. He should be fine. We can't let our guard down until Kakashi-sensei wakes up, Naruto said. The enemy could attack at any moment before they die. Who are those people? Sakura asked, visibly shaken. After all, it was her first time facing a life and death battle between shinobi. The missing nin from Kurigakure. Sasuke was a little calmer and said calmly, what concerns me is Zabuza's killing intent. He's as strong as Kakashi. And that man wearing the mask can form hand seal with one hand. We must be on guard against that skill when we face him next time. Then next time, we'll kill them. Naruto raised his hand and made a cutting gesture. That masked shinobi's right hand is already useless. We must complete the mission, and with Kakashi-sensei's current state of not being able to fight, I want to ask you both something. At this point, Naruto lowered his voice significantly. This mission was supposed to end here. We have already sent that old drunk back. But if we don't take this chance to kill those 2 while they are injured, it will be a hidden danger for us. I have a plan to kill those 2 Kurigakure's missing nin before Kakashi-sensei wakes up. Kill the Kurigakure's missing nin. Sasuke raised his head and looked at Naruto, almost instinctively frowning. With just the 3 of them, how could we possibly kill an elite Jonin on par with Kakashi? Not to mention that Zabuza still has a masked boy by his side whose strength is unknown. How could we possibly achieve this? It's simply insane. Sakura looked at Naruto in shock, almost thinking her ears were malfunctioning. Naruto, the 3 of us are still genin. Killing a Jonin is impossible, right? No, it's not. Naruto raised his hand, and the hot lava release surged from his palm. If we seize the opportunity, I can kill them. What is that? Sakura was stunned for a moment. I don't know how I did it. Naruto scratched his head, feigning innocence, it just came out during an emergency. Sasuke was speechless, his eyes began to wander, it seemed that ever since we left the academy, the gap between us had widened. The guy seemed to have said before that the other teams are almost all clans, shinobi, so they probably inherited their clan's ninjutsu like the Uchiha clan in the past. But now the Uchiha clan no longer exists. Sasuke's eyes dimmed for a moment, and a feeling of powerlessness surged into his heart and then disappeared in an instant. What should we do? Sasuke raised his head and his eyes became determined. Either he becomes stronger in battle or he dies in battle. If things continued as they were, he would never have the hope of killing that man. Strike while the iron is hot. Naruto said decisively. Kakashi-sensei was already seriously injured, not to mention Zabuza, who was at a disadvantage at the time. That masked boy's arm is also already useless. Now is the best opportunity. Naruto. Sakura was stunned as she listened on the side. Then, she finally understood that these two people were really planning to kill those two missing nin. But we don't know where they are. I know. Naruto suddenly smiled. They can't run far, so they must be hiding somewhere in the woods. Maybe it's a small wooden house, or a room in a building. Upon hearing this, Sakura looked at Naruto and then at Sasuke, realizing that at this point, both of them had made up their minds and there was absolutely no turning back. Wouldn't it be too risky? Upon hearing this, both Naruto and Sasuke looked at her. Sakura was a bit flustered and suddenly at a loss, and asked stutteringly. What's wrong? It's okay. Naruto said, Sakura, if we don't take action now, it will be even more dangerous when those two recover. We have no way out. Behind Zabuza is Gato. Didn't you hear what the old drunk, Tsunade, said? Gato has many rogue shinobi and rogue samurai under his command. If we don't eliminate Zabuza and the masked boy, we will have to face attacks from two forces. As he said that, Naruto held up 4 fingers. There are only 4 of us, 1 Jonin and 3 Genin. If we face Gato and Zabuza together, we will have no chance. Although there are only 3 of us now, we only need to deal with a masked boy with half his hand disabled. No matter how you think about it, acting now is the best strategy. Naruto's words made sense. Sakura opened her eyes wide, and she had no way to refute him. Finally, she bit her lip and nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Naruto glanced at the two of them and said seriously. Believe me, this time, we will definitely win. Once we deal with Zabuza, Gato will be just a bug. Naruto wasn't exaggerating. Zabuza is the most powerful shinobi Gato could hire. After all, a profit-driven and unscrupulous businessman like Gato wouldn't spend a fortune hiring a legitimate shinobi. It must be known that his subordinates are a group of rogue shinobi and rogue samurai, in other words, thugs. He hired Zabuza simply because he saw the advantage of his missing nin status. Even so, he wanted to get his services for free. So the whole situation is easy to understand. Gato wanted to kill bridge building expert, Tsunade. But when he learned that Tsunade had hired bodyguards from Konoha, he called in a backup hitter. Gato, wanting to cut costs, didn't use a legitimate platform to find a mercenary, but instead privately contacted Zabuza and promised to pay him after the job was done. However, Gato never intended to pay. He planned to swoop in and take advantage during the ensuing chaos. Night. For the first time, Team 7 undertook a solo mission, slipping into the forest under the cover of darkness. Found it. Naruto scouted the area, then jumped back to the others, and speaks in a hushed tone. They're in a 2-story cabin in the woods. Hearing this, Sakura couldn't help but feel nervous. I'll launch a frontal attack, you flank, and Sakura, you provide genjutsu support. How does that sound? Sasuke quickly proposed a battle plan. Okay. Naruto nodded, but there is one thing I want to confirm. What is it? The Uchiha clan can awaken the so-called Sharingan, right? Naruto said casually. Sasuke, it's best if you go all out from the start. This way Sakura will be safer. The longer this drags on, the more dangerous it becomes for Sakura. Me. Sakura was a bit confused, but she couldn't help but become more nervous. You don't have to worry about me. I can take care of myself. Sakura, your strength isn't in direct combat. Naruto looked at Sakura deeply and said, "You don't need to push yourself. Sasuke and I will handle the fighting. You just need to support us with genjutsu. If the situation changes, we'll rely on you to help us get out." Hearing this, Sakura couldn't help but feel moved and nodded firmly. "Don't worry, I can do it." Whether she could or not, Naruto didn't know. But he knew that Haku and Zabuza were right in front of him, and if he and Sasuke unleashed their strongest attacks from the start, Haku alone wouldn't be able to stop them. The three took their positions, each on a different side of the two-story cabin. After exchanging a glance, Sasuke made the first move. He ran forward, throwing 3 shuriken at odd angles toward the cabin. Naruto went directly from behind. Orange chakra enveloped his whole body, the hot lava release heating his body. This time, he unleashed all his chakra, aiming for a single, lethal strike. Sakura took a deep breath and followed the trajectory of the shuriken thrown by Sasuke. At the moment when the window was broken by the shuriken, she formed a hand seal, immediately activating her genjutsu. Naruto directly burst through the cabin's wall, and the hot lava release instantly set it on fire. Haku immediately fled from the cabin with Zabuza on his back, with her blackened hand hanging uselessly in front of him. "Sasuke!" Naruto shouted. At this moment, Sasuke was blocking the direction of Haku and Zabuza's escape route, and his Scarlet One Tomo Sharingan suddenly unleashed. Haku, who was still forming hand seals with one hand, was caught off guard and froze in place. Even though this time was less than a second, Sakura managed to seize the opportunity to cast another genjutsu on him. Die! Naruto was nearly frantic, his pupils were blood red. Seizing Haku's momentary pause, he rushed towards the two of them with lava all over his body, directly piercing Haku's chest. The scorching lava directly burned through the weakened Zabuza, who couldn't move. Both of them turned wide-eyed in disbelief, not expecting to meet their end in this unexpected ambush. At the Konoha's training ground, a jet-black crow with blood-red eyes swooped down from the sky. The sun cast its shadow on the ground, creating a swift-moving black dot. Sasuke paused his training, lifting his gaze from the grass. He looked out over the field, his eyes fixing on the dark spot circling the sun above the training grounds. With his sharp gaze, Sasuke sensed something unusual and narrowed his eyes, ready to activate his Sharingan. "Sasuke!" Sakura's voice called from a distance. The girl, carrying a lunchbox, stood at the edge of the training ground, waving at him. The wind blew through her long hair, and her whole body was coated with a layer of gold in the sun. "Thanks." Sasuke walked over to take the lunchbox and noticed it had 2 layers. "For that guy?" "Yes." Sakura nodded and smiled awkwardly. "After we came back that day, Kakashi-sensei was really furious. Naruto has to complete 20D rank missions by himself as punishment. Until he completes them, Team 7 can't take on any more missions." Kakashi meant well. If the village knew about this, I'm afraid even more severe punishment would be waiting for that guy, Sasuke said while eating a rice ball. Hearing this, a trace of worry flashed across Sakura's face. Kakashi-sensei altered the mission report, changing our individual actions to group actions under the leadership of the Jonin. Naruto also took full responsibility, so we don't have to be punished. But for some reason, Gato's shipping company mysteriously went bankrupt. I heard that Gato owed money and couldn't pay it back. He was killed in a revolt by rogue shinobi. After chatting with Sasuke for a while, Sakura went to the street where Naruto was carrying out his mission. She looked around but saw no one. She looked up and happened to see Naruto lying on the roof, napping in the sun. "Naruto, it's time to eat." When Naruto, who was on the roof, heard her voice, he rolled over and jumped down. The building was an old, abandoned house near a bamboo forest. The summer breeze blew softly, rustling the bamboo leaves. Behind the house was a low slope covered with lush green grass, shining even brighter in the sunlight. The two sat on the slope, eating rice balls. Sakura seemed preoccupied, occasionally appearing lost in thought while talking to Naruto. What are you thinking about? Naruto asked. Nothing, nothing. Sakura forced a smile, but then her face showed a sense of loss again. Naruto. Why do you want to be a shinobi? Sakura asked. To live, I guess. Shinobi missions pay well, and being a shinobi comes with many benefits. Naruto said thoughtfully, for someone like me, what else could I do if I didn't become a shinobi? Sakura was stunned for a moment, then apologized. It's fine. Naruto waved his hand, took another bite of the rice ball and said, being a ninja is just a job anyway. And I never planned on being one forever. I really envy you, Naruto. Sakura said a little dejectedly. Why? Because I feel like I can't help at all. Every time we face danger, it's always you and Sasuke who step in. Sakura hugged her knees and curled up. Sometimes, I wonder if I'm not cut out to be a shinobi. That's not true. Naruto looked at Sakura and said, Sakura, I remember when we graduated, your grades were third in the whole academy, right? Exactly. This proves that you have the talent to be a shinobi, but you just haven't found your own path yet. Path? Sakura raised her head when she heard that. Yes, your own path. Naruto affirmed, Team 7 should be the most unique team among this year's Genin teams, so there's no need to compare yourself to Sasuke and me. The Uchiha clan has always excelled in combat. Both their taijutsu and shurikenjutsu are passed down from generation to generation. And Sasuke's path was determined from the beginning. Those eyes of his, do you know the secret of the Uchiha clan's Sharingan? Sasuke-kun's secret? Sakura was a little surprised. She suddenly recalled Sasuke's eerie, glowing red eyes when they're in the forest of the Land of Waves, and she couldn't help but become tense. The Uchiha clan is a clan of hatred, Naruto said, he carries an immense burden, and that hatred drives him to become stronger. Those eyes of his are an incredible weapon. They might even be able to defeat Hokage-sama. Hatred. Sakura's face turned pale. Yeah, so you don't have to worry so much. Naruto began tidying up the lunch box. Sakura, you also have your own ninja way. You just need to find the training path that suits you. For example, how about medical ninjutsu? Why medical ninjutsu? Sakura asked curiously. Medical ninjutsu requires high precision in chakra control, Naruto explained. Sakura, you have a talent in this area, so I think you could try learning medical ninjutsu. Thank you, Naruto. Sakura said sincerely, without you, I wouldn't have thought of it myself. Well, we're teammates, aren't we? Naruto stood up and looked at Sakura, who was very touched. You should go back and think about it carefully. I've got to get back to my mission. With that said, he disappeared from Sakura's sight. Sakura looked in the direction Naruto had gone to with a complicated look. Finally, she sighed, picked up the lunchbox, and left. Naruto didn't go back to catching stray cats and dogs, but instead found another rooftop to lie down and continue basking in the sun. A panel popped up and Naruto opened the system storage with his thoughts. Looking at the dazzling array of treasures and cash inside, Naruto's face showed a satisfied smile. With all this money, I would never have to work for money again in my life. Yet, amidst the joy, Naruto also felt a sense of emptiness. With so much money, why do I still want to work so hard? How should I spend this money? Buying real estate in Konoha will definitely be a loss. In 3 years, Pain would flatten Konoha with his attacks. The next step is to break free from Konoha's control and gain autonomy. The Kyuubi in my belly belongs to Konoha, but it doesn't necessarily have to stay that way. Besides, that cheap father of mine hadn't asked my permission to seal the fox inside me. Why should I serve Konoha as a weapon for 70 years? On the rooftop, Naruto crossed his legs and sat up suddenly with a thought in his heart. Damn it, I couldn't just stay here. Now that I had enough money to last 10 lifetimes, it would be a shame if I were to be used as a weapon and tied up in Konoha. One person alone couldn't achieve much. If I want to gain power and influence in Konoha, I had to have a clan behind me. I also need to be stronger and then expand my clan, and use this money to revive the Uzumaki clan and restore its former glory as a sealing clan. Little piggy, be good, open the door, if you don't, I won't. Naruto strolled leisurely through the forest with his hands behind his back, humming a nursery rhyme, his eyes scanning everywhere for the missing cat. A cat had run away from Mrs. Yamanaka's flower shop, so she registered the mission at Hokage Tower and paid 5,000 ryo for a D-rank mission. Since all the other teams were out on missions with their Jonin instructors during this period and only Team 7 was idle, so this mission naturally fell on the head of the unlucky Naruto. Who made him act on his own and risk his life with Team 7 to hunt down Zabuza and Haku. Although they succeeded, it also made Kakashi furious. As punishment, Naruto had to complete 20 D-rank missions alone. Little cat, come out and go home with Uncle Ino. Mrs. Yamanaka. After shouting a series of things that might catch the cat's attention, Naruto still didn't hear any movement. In the end, he could only lie down on a bench by the road in frustration. Naruto, what are you doing sleeping here? Hearing a familiar voice, Naruto raised his head, and what came into view was a head of golden hair. Ino stood with her hands on her hips, leaning forward slightly to look at Naruto. Ino. Naruto didn't bother to get up. When did you return to the village? This afternoon. After the mission is over, Asuma-sensei gave us 2 days off. Ino sat next to Naruto. My mother's cat is missing. Oh, I know that. I'm the genin who accepted that mission. Naruto said, leaning back on the bench and pointing at himself. Under the street light, the two people were not far away from each other and looked at each other casually. Naruto was wearing a black t-shirt and loose brown shorts, with a completely nonchalant look on his face. Hey, you. Ino grabbed Naruto's clothes and said angrily, since you accepted a mission from someone, you need to show some effort. After that, Ino forcefully pushed Naruto to the other side of the bench. But Naruto, still lying down, didn't care and said nonchalantly, yes, Ino-sama, you're the best. So find the cat, and I'll treat you to barbecue. That's your mission. Why are you just lying here? Ino was getting exasperated. It's my mission, but I can also hire you. Naruto said nonchalantly, the village never said a shinobi can't hire another shinobi to complete a mission, right? That's true, but I have no obligation to help you find the cat. Ino glared at Naruto. Ino, you don't want Mrs. Yamanaka to be sad, do you? You. Stop saying useless stuff, Ino. If we find the cat, I'll treat you to barbecue. Besides, for you to be out this late, you must be looking for the cat, right? After hearing this, even though she was still unhappy, Ino had to compromise. Holding back her anger, she stood up and walked to Naruto, leaning down to look at Naruto's face with a displeased look and said, get up and look for it with me. Hurry. Yes. Naruto yawned as Ino forcefully dragged him up, pulling him along by the hand. Honestly, how can you be like this? Ino grumbled as she tugged Naruto forward, continuously complaining. Bastard. If you take on a mission, do it properly. Who are you showing this lazy attitude to? Don't you want to get home early? It doesn't matter whether I go home or not. Naruto suddenly said, I was planning to sleep on the bench all night. Stop saying things like that and start looking properly. Ino paused for a moment, but continued dragging Naruto forward. Ino, I think I heard something over there. After listening carefully in the forest for a while, Naruto pointed in a direction and said, got it. Ino said impatiently. In the moonlight, Ino pushed Naruto aside and walked forward, but she tripped and was about to fall forward. Just as she was about to regain her balance, Naruto grabbed her. What are you doing? Naruto asked, tilting his head in confusion. Me. Can't you see that I tripped? Ino replied irritably. Oh, then I'll let go. Naruto pretended to release her hand, causing Ino's pupils to shrink in panic. Naruto. Ino screamed as she desperately grabbed onto whatever she could. Naruto wanted to grab her again, but Ino grabbed at his clothes at this moment. Shit. Naruto was caught off guard and cursed in surprise. However, it was too late. Naruto fell in the direction where Ino fell, and with a ripping sound, his clothes were torn. Ouch. Ino opened her eyes to find Naruto on top of her. Their lips weren't so precisely aligned, but Naruto's clothes had been torn by her and his head was resting near her neck. That spot. This is bad. Ino felt the warmth coming from her neck and her face flushed instantly. Naruto. Get off me. Ino shouted with a red face. Stop pulling my clothes. Naruto yelled, then screamed again, stop pulling. Your hands. After a chaotic struggle, Ino got up from the ground, wiping the moisture from her lips, and said, what did you do? I didn't do anything, don't talk nonsense Ino. Naruto jumped up, covering his tattered clothes. How am I supposed to go home like this? Ino's anger was almost visible to the eye, and she clenched her fists tightly. Just as she was about to teach Naruto a lesson, a meowing sound was heard. A pure white cat walked gracefully out of the bamboo grove, passing by the quarreling pair, giving them a glance. Under a large green tree outside the Yamanaka flower shop, Ino pulled out a white shirt from behind her and handed it to Naruto, saying reluctantly, here, you are not allowed to do weird things with my clothes. Huh. Naruto pouted and said, why would I do that? Besides, you were the one who tore my clothes first. Apologize sincerely. Damn it. How would I know if you would? Ino argued. As it was already late at night, her voice softened, anyway, I'm sorry. Hearing the usually strong-willed Ino apologize, Naruto was taken aback and didn't know how to react. Well, since you've apologized, I'll forgive you. Naruto scratched his head and said, it was partly my fault too. How about I treat you to barbecue? Ino looked up and stared at Naruto for a long time with complicated eyes, then asked, you really want to treat me to a barbecue? Yeah. Naruto nodded. Barbecue is expensive. I've saved up some money from the missions I've done recently. Anyway, Naruto said, you don't have to worry about this. Alright then. Ino nodded and said, since you sincerely invite me, I will mercifully agree to your invitation. But I'm also rich, so I'll be the one treating you, idiot. Looking at Ino turning and walking into the Yamanaka flower shop, Naruto, from a distance, tilted his head and thought to himself, I really had too much money to spend. She didn't misunderstand anything, did she? Naruto shook his head and watched the brightly lit Yamanaka flower shop for a while before turning and leaving. A barbecue meal was nothing to him now. A drop in the bucket. Not even that, probably. The system had transferred all the savings from years of illegal transactions of Gato's shipping company, amounting to approximately 800 billion ryo. Even Naruto was dumbfounded when he first saw such a long string of zeros. He had been poor before crossing over, but after crossing over and relying on the system, he became incredibly wealthy. Unfortunately, wealth that couldn't be flaunted was like wearing brocade clothing at night, which was somewhat frustrating to him. For now, he could only show off a bit with a barbecue meal. Yamanaka flower shop. Ino handed the cat back to a middle-aged woman dressed like a noble lady. Yamanaka Rhino was wearing an emerald green dress, with an elegant red headband accessory on her head. At this moment, she was holding the cat with one hand, gently stroking the soft white fur of the cat with the other, and asked, Ino, that boy is Naruto, right? Yeah, Ino replied, trying to cover up but eventually nodded, I just happened to run into him. He is the one who took the mission to find the cat. I see. Rhino nodded and said calmly, I don't object to you falling in love, but... Having said that, Rhino lowered her eyebrows and slowly looked at her daughter. Naruto is different from the others. Mom doesn't want you to end up heartbroken because you fell in love with the wrong person. Mom, what are you talking about? Ino said in a panic, you misunderstood, there's no way I would like that annoying guy Naruto. Ino. Rhino looked at her daughter gently and said, the family crest of the Yamanaka clan is the purple Lespedeza flower. Do you still remember its meaning? Healthy growth, Positivity. Ino was a little at a loss for words. Positive love. Mom is just giving you some advice. Rhino turned and went upstairs, leaving behind a sentence, rest early, Ino. Okay, Mom. After washing up, Ino lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling in a daze. The events of the evening and her mother's words echoed in her mind. If her mother hadn't mentioned it, she wouldn't have thought in that direction at all. It was Naruto, after all. There was no way she could like that guy. Always pranking and lazy, although it was unclear why Naruto had recently improved so quickly, she still disliked his appearance. The two had never gotten along since they were kids. But, Ino covered her eyes with her hands, light seeping through the gaps between her fingers. She couldn't help but squint her eyes, and couldn't help but recall the scene in the bamboo forest. The back of her neck felt faintly hot, causing Ino to feel a burst of irritation. The heart of a young girl instantly became as tangled as the green vines climbing the courtyard walls. Ichiraku ramen. The half-warm curtain at the entrance was lifted. Tsuki glanced at the visitor with his small eyes and then tossed a piece of ramen into the pot. The usual, right, Naruto? Yes. Naruto hesitated for a moment, but still didn't say the words, give me the most expensive one. Those words were stuck in his throat. Moments later, steaming hot ramen was placed in front of Naruto. The Chunin exams are coming up soon, right? Tsuki, standing at the counter, asked with a smile, his small eyes squinting. Really? Naruto was slightly stunned. Well, recently the teachers from the academy who come here for ramen have been talking about it a lot. Hearing it often enough, I naturally got to know about it. Tsuki said. Naruto, you would participate in the Chunin exams too, right? Do your best. As he said this, Tsuki handed over some tempura. On the house. Good luck, kid. Looking at Tsuki's sincere smile, Naruto couldn't help but smile and nodded in response. I certainly will. The time between the Chunin exams and the Genin graduation seemed to be particularly close, but the Chunin exam was mostly just a formality. Generally, any Genin who has reached the required qualifications and is still alive can become a Chunin. Ultimately, the number of missions accomplished could add points in the Chunin exams. For the new generation of Genin teams like Naruto's, who were taking the Chunin exams before having enough qualifications, it will be more difficult to become a Chunin. At the same time, Naruto also understood that his participation in this Chunin exams was just for show. The three great clans in the village, Akamichi, Nara, and Yamanaka, along with the Hyuga clan, dominated this event. What chance did he, a Jinchuriki and a neglected member of the Uzumaki clan, have? The identification of Chunin was not only based on the opinions of Jonin, but also depended on the attitudes of the Land of Fire's nobles. This was a bit like an unspoken rule. The Nara clan had always been a pillar of Konoha and staunch supporters of the Sandaime Hokage. At the same time, the Nara clan had deep ties with many nobles of the Land of Fire. After all, as a major clan known for deer farming, their deer antler medicinal business spanned the entire Land of Fire. How could their influence be confined to the Konoha village? If nothing unexpected happens, it is a foregone conclusion that Shikamaru will be promoted to Chunin. After returning home, Naruto immersed himself in the brand new bathtub he had just purchased while thinking about the upcoming Chunin exams. There is no doubt that this major event in the early stage of the series will definitely trigger the system's options. In the original work, Naruto charged forward with hot-blooded enthusiasm, but in the end, after the Chunin exams, he got nothing except a body covered in injuries. Since he knew that it was impossible to obtain the Chunin title, there was no need to waste his effort on the competition. What Naruto should consider was how to maximize his benefits. The Chunin exams were like a truth-revealing mirror, exposing all the secrets Konoha village desperately tried to hide under broad daylight. The slave branch of the Hyuga clan, the bloody massacre of the Uchiha clan, the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. Truth will eventually come to light, and all the filth will eventually be exposed to the public. Naruto thought about it and initially considered leaving the village during this opportunity. However, his identity as a Jinchuriki was too conspicuous, and it would be impossible for him to escape the village as easily as Sasuke. Besides, even with the Rinnegan, Nagato still couldn't establish a Megakure to be strong enough to challenge the five great nations. Could he do it alone? The only person capable of single-handedly challenging the whole shinobi world is the dancing master, Uchiha Madara. A Kyuubi's Jinchuriki like him should just stay in Konoha and plan slowly. Future travels would have to be under the guise of missions, which was a bit frustrating for him. But there are benefits. After all, he is not short of money. It would be great if he could establish contact with the exchange office, as he could have others do what he couldn't conveniently do. If he wanted to revive the Uzumaki clan, aside from gathering the clan members scattered around the shinobi world, the only thing he can do is to spread his seeds as soon as possible. The next day, Naruto's days continued to be filled with numerous D-rank missions. Sakura listened to Naruto's advice and discussed with Kakashi how to start her training path as a medical nin. After discussing this matter, Kakashi found a teacher for Sakura in the medical department, Yu. Yu is a medical nin from the golden generation of Konoha, from the same period as Kakashi. Although the survival rate of medical nin was very high during that period, he is still one of the best medical nin to have survived until now. Although not as famous as Tsunade, given the current situation, Kakashi couldn't possibly know where Tsunade was. As a Jonin, Yu is more than capable of teaching Sakura. Kakashi, is this your student? Yu, dressed in a medical nin uniform, asked. Sakura looked at Yu nervously. Yu was a man in his early 20s, about the same age as Kakashi. He was wearing a white medical nin uniform and a large medical nin hat on his head. There was a big red cross printed on his chest, and there were several medical nin in the same uniform beside him who glanced at Kakashi. Nice to meet you. Please take care of me. Sakura bowed timidly and said, My name is Haruno Sakura. Please guide me. Yo, Kakashi, your student is much more polite than you. Another medical nin, Kataka, stepped forward and said jokingly. Shut up. Kakashi replied, displaying his classic dead fish eye. I heard that Kakashi came with his disciples. Another voice echoed in the medical department, and a medical nin named Saosui, wearing a white square cap, walked out. She's a cute girl, that's rare. The square-faced medical nin, Auden, also walked out of the consulting room. Is she joining our medical department? One of the two medical nin, who were carrying a stretcher, stopped and turned to ask. That would be great. Hayakusa, the medical nin at the other end of the stretcher, said with a smile, we've been short-handed lately, so this is a great help. Sakura's face turned red. She didn't expect so many people to come forward and speak to her. She looked helplessly at Kakashi. Kakashi reassured Sakura and said, Don't be afraid, those guys are always like this. I've been injured so many times that I've gradually become familiar with these guys in the medical department. Sakura nodded and began her training journey with the medical department in a daze. However, Kakashi really doesn't have that much time to take care of 3 students. Sakura was left to the medical department, while Naruto is still doing AD rank missions, so there is no need to consider him for the time being. The only person he is currently focusing on training is Sasuke. Perhaps it's because they both possess the Sharingan, but Kakashi paid considerable attention to Sasuke. After all, there weren't many surviving Sharingan users. Obito's eye was functioning in Kakashi's body, allowing him to use it effectively. At present, the only one who can be called Kakashi's most beloved disciple is Sasuke. While almost all members of Team 7 were busy training, a certain Konoha's shinobi who had slipped through the cracks of the Will of Fire education was napping on a hammock in the forest. Since returning from the Land of Waves mission, Naruto had to pay the price for his recklessness, requiring him to complete 20 D-rank missions alone before rejoining Team 7. So far, including the cat-finding mission for Mrs. Yamanaka in the bamboo forest last night, he had completed a total of 5D rank missions. After that, he decided to take it easy. How long will it take to complete 20 missions? Why not just pay someone to do it? Naruto muttered to himself as he lay in the hammock, gazing at the sky through the gaps in the leaves. And that's exactly what he did. After taking a D rank trash collecting mission in the Hokage Tower, he spends 50,000 ryo to hire a student from the academy to do it for him. Well, poor academy's students with part-time jobs, I am really a great philanthropist of Konoha today. Naruto stretched and continued to lounge in his hammock. He has completely given up now and doesn't care that the Konoha's higher-ups know the fact that he can use lava release. It was impossible to keep it a secret, and Kakashi must have reported it long ago. Of course, he also couldn't be bothered to hide the fact that he was rich. He didn't care if there were any Anbu watching him, he just let himself go and lived freely. The village couldn't do anything about him, and all of Gato's wealth was stored in the system warehouse. Even if the village wanted to investigate, there was no way to start. After all, making a small fortune from missions outside the village was common in Konoha. Otherwise, with the meager income from mission rewards, except for the elite shinobi of Konoha, those low-level shinobi could not rely on that money to support their families. I have to say, taking it easy is really comfortable. Naruto squinted his eyes slightly, and after an unknown amount of time, he slowly opened his eyes and vaguely saw a figure standing in front of him. Hinata, when did you get here? Naruto was startled and coughed violently. The girl in a light purple hooded coat was also startled by Naruto's reaction. She looked at him at a loss before averting her gaze. QB's approval 2.3%. The mechanical synthesized voice echoed in Naruto's mind, and he was momentarily stunned. I hadn't done anything this time, so why has the favorability progress increased? I returned to the village yesterday. Kurenai-sensei said we wouldn't be taking any missions during this period and told us to train and prepare for the Chunin exams. Hinata said with a red face and her eyes tightly closed. Her small body trembled slightly, and she seemed very nervous. Oh, so you're free now? Naruto asked with a smile. Yeah, Hinata nodded. By the way, Hinata, how did you find me? Naruto scratched his head and asked. This place is quite remote. Byakugan. Hinata replied, looking a little embarrassed as she lowered her head. Oh, the Byakugan. Naruto leaned in closer, curious, and clicked his tongue in wonder. Naruto-kun. Hinata leaned back slightly and closed her eyes to avoid Naruto's gaze. There's nothing special to see. It's quite pretty. Hinata was surprised and opened her eyes wide in shock, looking at Naruto. Naruto-kun, what did you say? Upon closer look, the Byakugan is actually quite pretty, Naruto said with a smile. Yeah, warmth spread through Hinata's heart. In truth, the other villagers in Konoha didn't have a good attitude toward the Hyuga clan and saw the Byakugan as an ominous symbol. Even within the Hyuga clan, there were significant, unresolvable conflicts because of these eyes. The caged bird, that greenish tattoo. Hinata, wait for me here. Naruto suddenly ran off. Hinata stood there in a daze, listening to Naruto's words, and for a moment, she didn't know what to do. About half an hour later, Naruto finally came back with a large bundle on his back, which was bulging and seemed to contain a lot of things. Come on, I'll take you somewhere, Naruto said, grabbing Hinata's hand and leading her away without further explanation. Naruto-kun is holding my hand. Hinata suddenly felt dizzy and her face turned red again. She didn't even bother to ask where they were going, simply letting Naruto lead her forward. Traversing the lush forest of Konoha, the underbrush retreated as they moved forward, the forest breeze gently brushing against their faces. Hinata felt light as a feather until the dappled sunlight vanished. After a bend in the forest, the view ahead suddenly opened up. The sound of rushing water surrounded them, creating a blanket of white noise. A massive waterfall came into view, with a fast-flowing stream cascading down. Where is this? Hinata was slightly taken aback. The riverside, Naruto replied as he let go of Hinata's hand. Then, he carried the large bundle alone to a shaded spot near the river. The midday forest sunlight was harsh, the cicadas' cries blending with the sound of the waterfall, creating a noisy symphony. But Hinata's heart was beating vigorously in rhythm with the waterfall. Standing under the tree shade, Hinata watched Naruto busy himself, unwrapping the bundle and spreading a long cloth on the grass. In no time, Naruto had set up a basic camping site. A tablecloth, fire pit, grill, some seasonings, and even a pot. Hinata was dazzled by the sight and couldn't help but cover her mouth in surprise. Hinata, Naruto called out to her. The latter quickly responded and walked over in a daze. Curiously looking at the camping utensils on the ground, she couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. After all, she had been born with a silver spoon in her mouth. As the eldest princess of Hyuga clan, Hinata's biggest challenge had been failing to surpass her father, who was an insurmountable mountain for her. Though saying she had never touched a chore might be an exaggeration, Hinata was indeed a genuine princess. Unlike Naruto, who had grown up rough, her clothes were always clean. Standing there quietly, unstained by the elements. Naruto-kun, what are we doing? Hinata asked. Picnic barbecue. Naruto smiled at her and said, the stream below this waterfall flows fast, so the fish meat is very delicious. Hinata nodded, a bit nervous as she said, my father and others love sashimi, but I don't like it, so I rarely eat fish. Sashimi. Naruto squinted his eyes, momentarily stunned, I only know how to grill fish and cook fresh fish soup. That's enough. I have never eaten the grilled fish made by Naruto-kun. Hinata blushed deeply, waving her hands in panic, afraid Naruto would misunderstand, no. I mean, it's okay. Naruto walked up to Hinata and said, no need to explain so much. Come on, I'll take you fishing. Hinata, have you ever fished before? No. Hinata blushed slightly and lowered her head, in the past, I would be taken away whenever I got close to the river. I've only seen others fishing from a distance. That makes sense. The Hyuga clan has always regarded themselves as the nobles of Konoha. Fishing is a recreational activity for common folk, and the Hyuga clan will not allow Hinata to do such a meaningless thing. It's okay, I'll teach you. Naruto said, grabbing Hinata's hand again and leading her to a nearby grove. In the distance, an Anbu and a Hyuga clan's shinobi were standing on the treetops not far from each other, looking at each other. Hyuga shinobi. Where is that boy taking the young lady? Anbu shinobi. Into the grove, I guess. Quote. Why don't you use your Byakugan to check? The Anbu shinobi suggested. It would disturb the young lady. The Hyuga shinobi said with a straight face, why don't you go see for yourself? It would be bad if I'm discovered. The Anbu shinobi laughed and said, I only get that little salary a month, why would I take the risk? What if the young lady is in danger? What if that boy? The Hyuga shinobi hesitated to speak. That's your problem. If something goes wrong, I might lose my job. The Anbu shinobi said shamelessly, but if I'm caught, the chances of losing my job are even higher. It's better to just watch from a distance. You. The